Hi, I'm Riley Mann with the National Sports Media Association, joined by John Thayer, South Dakota's 2023 Sportscaster of the Year. How are you doing today, John?
I'm good. It's great to be chatting with you. I appreciate your time.
Likewise, thank you. And if you could start off by giving us a brief background about what you're doing today in the world of sports.
Yeah, so I'm currently the radio play-by-play voice of the University of South Dakota, covering football and men's basketball. And we have a weekly coaches show. We do a podcast every week, and then also kind of some short daily show type of things. So that's a lot of it, and certainly, times things are winding down right now a little bit for us because we don't have baseball, but it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. And I read online that I believe the podcast is called Yokecast. Is that correct? Okay,
That
can you
is, yeah.
give me awesome. Can you give me a little bit more about that and what that's like and how you really got your foot in the door for that and how you got it going?
Yeah, we started it about 4 years ago, and it was really an opportunity for us to kind of connect our student athletes and administration in athletics with the fans a little bit more. So we've had anybody from, new members of the athletic department staff to current student athletes to, former student athletes. A couple of our big ones we've had here recently are Jack Cochran, who has won a couple of Super Bowls with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Chris Strevler, who's won a Grey Cup in the Canadian Football League, and so pretty cool to kind of reach out to those guys. Sometimes they give us a lot of their time and just keep reminding our fans what was once here and how they're doing in today's world.
Oh, that's awesome. And do you think having the podcast is different than like sideline reporting or reporting for how you do? Because I believe you're the play-by-play voice. That's correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely different. You have to obviously prepare differently. A lot of times our podcast interviews we're going in depth with the background of the student athlete or where people once were and to how they got to where they are today and stuff like that. So we do a lot of that. So it's kind of a just a whole different preparation, obviously a different interview process, but it's really fun when you can get student athletes, even some of them that I've never met before, and this is our first time meeting. When you get them settled down into a conversation just to talk about their life and where they grew up and what drives them and inspires them,
Yeah,
that to me is really cool.
that's awesome. With that being said, do you have a favorite like story that you've covered or event so far this year that just really spoke to you?
I would say, for as far as like an event that I covered would be, our football team just had its best season at the Division 1 level and made it to hosting 2 games in the FCS playoffs. And so just to have that after a 3-win season a year ago, to be able to win more games than they ever have at this level and to make the playoffs and to host a couple of games. It was really cool to see our fans, come out and embrace that and just see the program take that leap forward. So that has been very rewarding because obviously, the year before was really, really tough. And you just watch these kids, you know how hard they're working, and it's good to see it pay off for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, surely it paid off for you as well. Congrats again on this award. And how does it feel to know that your hard work's been recognized by all your peers in this industry?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's humbling for sure. One of those things that you find out that you've been nominated for it, and then you just don't know how the voting is going to go. But I always think awards are really really neat because they recognize you for the effort that you put in. But when they're voted on by your peers, it means a little bit more. So that's a lot of people in the state that are paying attention to what you're doing and appreciate your effort.
For sure. Congrats again. And do you believe there was a moment this year that led you to receiving this award?
I couldn't find a moment. I have no
Yeah.
idea. I just try to, I'm kind of the guy who I go to work, I go to every game and approach it the same way. You try to put together the best broadcast, the best show, if you will, um, of that game. It doesn't matter who's there. It doesn't matter if it's nationally televised or not. And you just try to go to bring the fans, bring the game to life for the fans who are able to tune in, and that's just how I approach it. And I don't know. I think I go to work the same every day, and hope for good results.
That's awesome. And if the answer to the next question has not already been answered by that, what do you think differentiates you from other reporters?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I bring a different energy level than some. I mean, I probably at times get overexcited, but I like to get excited, but also keep it to a level that people can understand what you're doing. And anytime that you get fans that approach you and talk to you about your broadcast, it's really cool. And when they say you made us feel like we were right there, that's always the goal. And so that's just kind of how I approach it, and the hope for each broadcast.
Well, that's awesome that you bring this energy and you're so passionate about this. With that being said, how did you get your kind of foot in the door with this business, and where'd you start, and would you say that this has brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I went to a small college in the state of Nebraska, and just always wanted to get into kind of this business, and I moved around a couple of different opportunities. At one point, I was traveling the country with the College Fan Sports Network, and we were covering NAIA football and basketball all over the country. We were driving everywhere, and that was really cool. It makes you appreciate an airplane today when we get that opportunity. But I moved to Yankton, South Dakota in 2012 for another job at a local radio station. And a year later, I started doing women's basketball broadcast at the University of South Dakota. And so very fortunate. My first year there was their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament, upsetting their way in the conference tournament. So that was really cool. 2016, they won the WNIT, which we had over 7,400 fans in attendance for, which was really, really awesome for, a women's basketball game, especially at the University of South Dakota. So that was really cool. And then, a few years ago, right as the whole COVID thing started, they asked me to move into this spot with football and men's basketball. And so my first football season was actually in the spring, because that year FCS football played spring football, and our program ended up only playing 4 games because the COVID virus ended up affecting the team. And, so they shut down the season after that for our team. But we played 4 games that spring. And then the next fall, we finally got into the flow of things. And so since I've been in it, they've been to the playoffs a couple of times, which is really, really cool. And hopefully they'll keep going. But, you just always look for opportunities. You look for connections. And I think that's one thing that young people need to know in this business. It's not always about how talented you are. It's about the people that you know and the connections you can make along the way.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And you said that you started off and worked with women's basketball. Do you think that there's a shift in reporting for women's sports versus men's sports?
Well, I think the games are different, and I think a little bit with today's athletes, maybe it's changing a little bit, but I've always said I think women's basketball is a true form of basketball. They actually run plays. Sometimes these guys get a little out of control, and, they're trying to make the big dunk or whatever, and all of that. But it's a little bit different, right? The games are different. You have halves and quarters, and just how the foul structure is set up. And women now in today's world can advance the basketball in the final minute where the men can't. And we'll see if men's basketball ever catches up with the quarters and advancing the basketball and whatnot. But it is definitely a little bit different. But, it doesn't matter the gender. It doesn't matter the level. All of these athletes and coaches put in so much time to be good that you just love watching them have success.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I have one more question for you today before we wrap things up. And that would be, what do you believe that you want to achieve in the rest of your career? Do you have any future goals or aspirations that you want to reach before you retire?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just keep doing what I'm doing, right? I love where I'm at. I've really grown to, I had no connections to the University of South Dakota prior to moving here, 10 years ago, a little over that, and getting started with these programs. But I love what I do. And, I think everybody's always looking for opportunities to advance themselves. But if you start thinking too much ahead on that, you maybe lose track of where you're at and the effort you can put forth. So I just keep grinding and see where it takes me, and hopefully people keep asking me to do this, because I'll tell you what, it's a lot of work to prepare for some of these games, but when tip off or kickoff happens, it's certainly a lot of fun.
I'm sure it's worth it. Well, that's just awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I appreciate your time.
You bet. Glad to do it. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.